go. What's going on, everybody? Finally got the Coyote the Dyno. Welcome to my new subscribers. Thank you for subscribing. Hopefully you like the content. A lot of new stuff going on, a lot of things happening. Just came back from a beautiful vacation up north. Had a couple weeks off, spent 1 week up there. The week prior we did some tuning on the car, so that's what we're going to talk about today. So exciting news about that. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about differences between the two dynos, but most of the numbers that we're used to seeing on the internet are from a dyno jet. That's an inertia dyno. It usually gives you an inflated number of about 12%. So what we'll do is give you that correlation from the results. So we tested the Boss on a Mustang Dynometer. So that's dual drums for the rear tires to rotate. It's supposed to be more accurate than a dyno jet. If you do search and look at the differences between the two as far as results, most of the information I found on the internet will give you about a 12% difference. So when I first heard my numbers, I was a little bit disappointed, but when I made the correlation, I was actually pretty impressed. What we did do that was not planned for this dyno session, where we added the 50-pound injectors from DHWorks. Those are just going to help with increased flow, and they will help support more horsepower. They will not increase your horsepower numbers. The extra add, I should say, that was not planned was a ported intake. That came out awesome. I had the guys at Force Engineering, and kudos to them. They offered it up to me, and I said, yes, let's do it. We gained 20 rear wheel horsepower out of porting the Boss intake. That's huge. In comparison to a Cobra Jet intake for $1,000, another $600 for a twin setup on your throttle body. Those are big numbers. When I started this channel, one of the goals was, and what I said, not knowing, right, but I was confident, I said we are going to match our numbers. We're going to put it up against 2018 2000 Mustang GTs. This Boss can perform equally as well as those vehicles. Now, what a lot of people don't know, the Boss is a Roadrunner engine. It was engineered for the road course, and it was engineered completely different than Gen 1 GTs. Some of the learnings that Ford did for Gen 2 and Gen 3 engines came from the Boss motor. The Boss has forged rods, forged pistons, forged crank. That crank will hold up to 2,000 horsepower. That's sitting in the Boss, forged steel crank. Boss does not have the oil squirters that are squirting down on the pistons. That was deleted for the Boss. 7,500 RPM. The heads are fully CNC'd. A 6-angle valve job on these valves, intake and exhaust, to get the flow. These heads outflow your standard Gen 1 GTs. The exhaust by 4%. The exhaust floor was raised to achieve that. But again, getting those angles in the valve, increasing the valve, they lowered the valve angle, if you will, to get more flow at low lift. Also, the valves are lightweight, sodium filled for high RPM. So these engines tune completely different than a Gen 1, I'll even say a Gen 2, and of course a Gen 3. So they're kind of all their own. Can they make power? I totally believe they can. So where are we at on the numbers? Everybody wants to know. Okay, so here's what kind of played out. I could not go in the dyno room during the session, so the owner of Force Engineering went ahead, and when he did the dynos and did the tune, he did everything. He got it videotaped. We got a couple of the control numbers and the finished dyno on the graphs. I will let you see 3 of the dyno videos, which is just the car on the dyno, but we'll have the opportunity to see that. So everybody's wanting to know, what are the numbers? What are the numbers? So, okay, here we go. We will provide you those numbers. The control as the car sat was 417 rear wheel horsepower. Okay, calm down. Everybody's going, huh? That's what I did. Like, wait a minute, this isn't right. A stock Boss dyno's between 390, 410 rear wheel horsepower, and maybe it averages 400. When I heard the number 417, I kind of like fell over, right? So when I found out that the Mustang Dynometer is 12% lower than your Dynojet, then when we plugged the numbers, that made sense. Okay, and we'll tell you what those numbers are. The second dyno number was on a 93 octane, gained 20 rear wheel horsepower. They got 437 rear wheel horsepower with the ported intake. So like I said, that's huge. The E85, they didn't get as much as they thought we would, but we ultimately ended up at 449 rear wheel horsepower on the E85 tune. Now the car is setting on E85. So what we did a little bit different, we'll just back up a bit. We want to talk about the 1-inch spacer we had apparently amounted to nothing. So we ended up removing that. We also tested 2 throttle bodies. It was the 85mm throttle body and the 90mm throttle body. So what we learned, according to Force Engineering, is that the 90mm throttle body made 1 horsepower more, peak horsepower more than the 85. The 85 made an overall better average horsepower numbers than the 90s. So the guys tuned me on the 85 millimeter throttle body. That's what we went with. We also added a JMS fuel booster. Not sure after doing that if I needed that, but apparently we're running at a low voltage, 17 volts on that. Now that might change a little bit when we get the other cams in. So what do these numbers mean? So we'll go through the numbers with the conversion of 12%. So 417 horsepower will convert to 467 rear wheel horsepower on a Dynojet, okay? And that's what I was expecting. I was actually expecting somewhere around 450 to 460, so I got a little more than I expected. That's pretty decent. With the 93 octane in the ported intake, the 437 rear wheel horsepower will result in 489 rear wheel horsepower, which is pretty damn respectable. With the E85 tune at 449 horsepower, comes out to 502.9 rear wheel horsepower. That's badass. So if you go back, I'm a big fan of Stang Mode, got his shirt on, right, supporting his merch. Xander 13, if you go back to their videos and see what they tune with Coyote intakes, all basically the same mods. Stang Mode, I believe, got 498 rear wheel horsepower, and Xander, I believe, got 490 rear wheel horsepower. Different dynos, they're both Dynojets, but they may have been calibrated just slightly different, or maybe just how their numbers happen to be. So very pleased at those numbers with the bolt-ons. The Boss actually has a smaller intake cam than the Gen 3 engines. I'm not sure where the Gen 3 cams are at. From my readings, they did change them from Gen 2, whereas the Gen 2 upgraded the intake to a 263 duration, 13 millimeter lift. The Boss still supports the 12 millimeter lift, 260 degree duration intake. That's what we have. We have stock cams, we have Dynatech long tube headers, Dynatech 3-inch X pipe. We flow into a Borla over the axle, 2 3/4 exhaust, GT 500 mufflers. The side pipes are removed, and we do have the plates on, the stock factory plates to close them off. We have a GLT2 intake with the BBK 85 millimeter throttle body, right? And then 170 degree thermostats. I don't know if that made a difference. The other thing I want to talk about just briefly, so those numbers are excellent. We will see some track time, but just not right away. It's just too hot. I don't want to get out there too hot. What we ended up doing is, because I went with HP tuners, the STX4. Now guys, if you have a STX4, stay with it, get it upgraded, and you can change back and forth your programs much quicker. The N gauge, for me, it's much easier to use, much user friendly. We have stock tune on here. We have both the 93 octane tune and the E85 tune. Now I do not have this. I still have my gauges. It gives me fuel ratio, battery, air intake temperature, etc., and my radiator temperature that's plugged in my OBD port. So I would have to get my window mount, which I'm waiting on for my N gauge. We'll eventually get those removed, but since I'm not changing back and forth, I'm not data logging right now, so I'm just going to keep it the way it is. But we are programmed on the N gauge for the red key. So excited about that. Why? Because now I can access my G meter on the red key, and then there was some other benefits to engine braking. There's like over 200 parameters on the red key, so hopefully some of those are still valid. I don't know if the red key helped with the tune to get us more horsepower. I have no idea, but What we're gonna do for shits and giggles, I already decided, is that we're gonna get this over and just do a straight dyno test on a Dynojet or a strictly performance. I'm not sure when that's gonna happen. Then we'll compare numbers to numbers. That'd be very interesting. I also want to add an interesting tip, share with you guys also. So I do a lot of YouTubing or watching Brenspeed. Brenspeed, excellent shop. In fact, I was supposed to go there originally, but it didn't just quite work out. I found Force Engineering is much easier for me to go 40 minutes away versus 2 hours away, because they needed the car 3 days. So that just didn't quite work out with me. But anyways, I want to add that Brenspeed did a test between 18-inch wheels and tires to a 20-inch wheel and tire. And what they found in a horsepower difference, there was about 34 pounds difference in weight. They lost 20 rear wheel horsepower from an 18-inch wheel going to a 20-inch. Now, earlier videos of mine, we weighed the Mickey Thompson ET tires with the Race Star wheels and compared them to our current state of Ford Star. Okay, there's 24 pounds difference. So what I did, all right, you can take that number. We ratioed the 24 pounds in relationship to the 34 pounds, what Brenspeed had showed a difference. They basically are about 70% of that total weight. I wanted to find out how much horsepower would I see when we bolted on the Mickey Thompson ETs. So if you run the number of 70.58% to the 20 horsepower, we would see another 14 horsepower at the rear wheels when we put the Mickey Thompson ETs on. So that would get us up to a total of 517 rear wheel horsepower. Now that's all because of rotating weight. You cannot dyno slicks on a Dynojet or in a Mustang Dyno. It doesn't like the sidewall. The sidewalls are weak. It's harder and you actually get a lower number. So that's why we dynoed with the street tires on. All right, we'll get an opportunity to look at the graphs quickly, and I can show you the numbers. So we'll take some pictures of those and then you can just see the numbers. There is not a graph, and I don't know why. There is not a graph for the 93 octane tune and when they did the port. So I just have the control of 417 and the end result with the ported intake, the E85, where we got a 449. I want to talk quickly because I see my numbers are counting. Is an E85 fuel checker. What this does is you want to make sure you're at least somewhere close to 85%. You don't want to deviate too far from that. Apparently the winter blend goes down as much as 60, 61, 62% of the E85. I think it's 65%. I know it because of cold starts in the wintertime, so it doesn't atomize well. So they play with the blend to get more gasoline in it to help with that. So we need to check our blend and make sure the pump we're getting, and guys, if you're making no changes, you'll know that from your tuner. You want to make sure that your blend is where it needs to be. So I'll probably do that separately with a can, bring home and check it, and then I'll just get my gas there. We'll run it that way through the fall. We won't store it on E85, we'll store it on the 93 octane. I think that pretty much wraps everything up. I do want to mention quickly, guys, I see I picked up some new subscribers, so thanks guys for subscribing to the channel. That's awesome. I want to let everybody know I am not a high volume producer, so my channel's a little slow. You won't be seeing 2 videos a day out of me. You might see a couple a week, you might see 1 a week, just depends on what's going on, what's coming up. So I am trying to plan a couple things. We do have a get-together with a S550 Supercharged. This is another vehicle that I need to get them out, and we need to do some testing together. Also, I would like to go back. You see one of my previous videos, roll racing in Mexico. I would like to go back and run this guy again with this new tune, with the 32 rear wheel horsepower increase, to see how I pan against him. I should be able to run with him in the quarter, but that'd be fun. It's yet to be seen, and let's see what kind of numbers we'll get at the track. So that's exciting, and so we'll see what else. We'll get some things coming up. But so thanks to my new subscribers, thanks to all who's watching. Hope you liked the video, hope you liked the content, and have a great day. Thanks.